Have you ever caught yourself thinking, man, I wish I had a bit more luck in my life? Like maybe you see someone else catch a lucky break and you wonder, why not me? Well, today, let's explore that very question.
Oh, for sure. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, and what's really cool is we have a roadmap of sorts. It's this intriguing idea from Korean author Kim Do-yoon. He wrote this book titled Lucky 7 Ways to Wake Up Your Luck Asleep Inside, which immediately makes you think, wait, is my luck sleeping? Can I actually wake it up?
It's a powerful image, right? Like there's
Yeah.
this potential within us just waiting to be unleashed.
Exactly. So that's what we're diving deep into today. Can we just sit back and hope for luck? Or can we actually influence it?
It's a question as old as time, I suppose. But what's exciting about Kim Do-yoon's approach is that it's grounded in real-world experience. He interviewed over 1,000 successful people from all walks of life for his book, Lucky Thinking.
Right, and it's not just theories. He's lived it. His own life story is incredible. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about overcoming obstacles.
Seriously. His father lost his job, his brother battled depression, then his mother. Well, it's a truly tragic story. And Kim Do-yoon himself faced depression, too. But what's remarkable is that she didn't let those hardships define him. He went on to achieve some pretty amazing things.
Exactly. He earned recognition from Korea's Ministry of Labor, represented his country on a national level, even received a presidential award. Plus, his YouTube channel blew up over 1 million subscribers. He clearly tapped into something powerful.
For sure. And it's all thanks to the translation work of Yu Shinsen that we get to explore his insights in English. So for you, dear listener, this deep dive is all about getting to the heart of what Kim Do-yoon discovered. We want to understand how luck works, and more importantly, how we can potentially make it work for us.
Totally. And he lays it all out in these 7 keys to creating luck. These aren't just random tips, they're insights gleaned from years of talking to people who've actually made it.
Precisely. So buckle up, because we're going on a journey to discover how to wake up that sleeping luck inside us.
Sounds good to me. Let's jump into the first key, which is all about people. In Korean, it's represented by the character who.
That's right, people. Kim Do-yoon argues that good luck often flows directly from the relationships we build. The people in our lives can either open doors to opportunity or, well, not.
And he kicks things off with this really interesting historical tidbit, a photo of President Reagan visiting Moscow back in 1988. There's this whole theory that a young Vladimir Putin, disguised as a tourist, might be lurking in the background.
Yeah, talk about a potential sliding doors moment, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what might have happened differently if those two had actually crossed paths back then? The authenticity of the photo is debated, but it makes you think.
It definitely does. Even seemingly random encounters can have huge implications down the line. And then he shifts to a more confirmed connection, the relationship between 2 former South Korean presidents, Moon Jae-in and Roh Moo-hyun.
Oh yeah, their story is fascinating. They actually started out as human rights lawyers, working together in Busan. What are the odds that 2 lawyers from the same regional city would both end up leading the country? It's a pretty remarkable coincidence.
It makes you wonder if their connection was more than just chance. Did their shared values and early partnership shape their journeys in ways they couldn't have imagined?
Absolutely. And then there's the legendary duo of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Buffett himself credits Munger with pushing him to evolve his investment strategy, moving beyond just hunting for bargain basement cigar butt companies.
Right, Munger helped him see the value of long-term potential and investing in solid businesses. Their partnership fundamentally changed how Buffett approached investing.
It's a perfect example of how the right people can challenge our thinking and help us grow in ways we might never have on our own.
And speaking of partnerships that changed the world, we can't forget Jack Ma and Jerry Yang, the founders of Alibaba. Imagine, their initial meeting was just a casual encounter. Ma was an English teacher giving Yang a tour. Who would have guessed that interaction would spark a global e-commerce giant?
It's a great reminder that sometimes the most unexpected connections can lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
And closer to home, Kim Do-yoon talks about the founders of some of Korea's biggest tech companies, Never, Graham, Nexent, Kakao. Many of them grew up in the same neighborhoods or attended the same universities.
It really makes you wonder, how much did those early networks shape their later success?
It definitely wasn't just about individual brilliance. Their shared experiences and connections likely played a big role in their entrepreneurial journeys. But to really drive home the point about how people can impact our lives, for better or worse, Kim Do-yoon brings up a stark contrast.
Oh, I know where you're going with this, the dark side of connection.
Exactly. He talks about Myra Hindley and Ian Brady, the Moors murderers.
Yeah.
Their horrific crimes were fueled by a toxic, destructive relationship.
A chilling reminder that the people we surround ourselves with can have a profound influence on our actions and ultimately our fate.
Absolutely. And to bring it back to everyday life, he uses this great Korean proverb, follow friends to Gangnam. Basically, it means you'll probably end up in the same place, both literally and figuratively, as the people you spend your time with.
It's a simple but powerful idea. Are your friends leading you towards your goals, or are they pulling you in a different direction?
So the takeaway here is to really think about the company you keep. Do your relationships energize you, support your growth, open doors to new opportunities?
Exactly. Do they lift you up or hold you back? Now, Kim Do-yoon has this brilliant analogy for finding the right people. He talks about climbing Mount Everest.
I see where he's going with this. You can't just show up and expect to climb Everest alone, right?
Not a chance. Even the most experienced climbers rely on Sherpa's guides who know the terrain, the challenges, the best paths to take. And that's what mentors are like in our own lives.
I love that analogy. We all need Sherpas to help us reach our own summits.
But here's the catch. You can't just expect a Sherpa to appear out of thin air.
Right. You have to prove you're serious about the climb.
Precisely. You have to show effort, dedication, and a basic understanding of what you're trying to achieve. Kim Do-yoon himself says he can't possibly meet with everyone who sends him an email or wants to be on his YouTube channel.
That makes perfect sense. Successful people value their time, so you need to demonstrate you're worth that time.
Right. He gives the example of this investment advisor, Park Sang-jin. This guy was naturally introverted, but he knew building relationships was crucial for his career.
So he pushed himself out of his comfort zone.
Absolutely. He sought out meetings with industry leaders, wrote articles, attended events. He deliberately built a reputation and a network.
And it paid off.
Oh, yeah, big time. And here's another interesting point. It's not just about close friendships. It's also about those weaker connections, the acquaintances in your network.
Yeah, I've heard that called the strength of weak ties.
Exactly. Even if you have tons of acquaintances, just a few valuable connections can make a world of difference.
And how do you find those valuable connections?
Kim Do-yoon says it's a numbers game to some extent. The more people you meet, the more you refine your judgment of character, and the more likely you are to bump into someone who can really move the needle in your life.
Interesting. So it's not about just collecting business cards. It's about actively engaging with people and seeing who resonates with you.
Exactly. Quality over quantity, but you also need to put yourself out there to discover that quality.
Makes sense. And he highlights this with the story of Choi Jung-kil, known as the Korean Buffett. Early support from two prominent business leaders was crucial for getting his investment firm off the ground.
Sometimes having the right people in your corner, especially early on, can be the difference between success and failure.
Totally. Kim Do-yoon sums this whole idea up beautifully. He says your individual efforts are like scattered dots. It's the people you connect with who draw the lines between those dots, creating a path towards success.
Love that visual. But he also warns us about the flip side, the people who can actually hinder our luck. He calls them people who are accustomed to failure.
Oh, I know the type. Always blaming others, never taking responsibility for their own actions.
Exactly. They have this fixed mindset, this poverty mindset, as Jack Ma calls it.
And it's not just about money, right? It's a way of thinking, a belief that opportunities are scarce and success is for other people.
Right. Kim Do-yoon contrasts these folks with people who embrace a growth mindset. They learn from their mistakes, they're open to feedback, and they focus on improving, even when it's uncomfortable.
So surrounding yourself with growth mindset people is key for attracting luck.
Absolutely. And to illustrate the power of being exposed to success, he talks about his own experience writing a book about successful YouTubers called YouTube Young Rich. He was blown away by the stories he heard.
What kind of stories?
Oh, one that really stood out was this YouTuber who went from making barely anything to earning millions of Korean won per month in just a few years. It totally shifted Kim Do-yoon's own thinking about what was possible.
Wow. I can imagine. Hearing those stories firsthand must have been incredibly inspiring.
Totally. He realized that he had been limiting himself by focusing solely on writing and lecturing. Seeing these YouTubers achieve massive success opened his eyes to a whole new world of possibilities.
That's really cool. It shows how powerful it can be to step outside of your comfort zone and see what others are doing.
For sure. And he didn't just observe, he took action. He started his own YouTube channel in 2018, and guess what?
Let me guess, his income started climbing.
You got it. He saw the trend, he experienced it firsthand, and he rode the wave.
So the lesson here is don't just stand on the sidelines. If you see a wave forming, get on your surfboard and ride it.
Exactly. But when it comes to networking, Kim Do-yoon emphasizes the importance of both direct and indirect experience. He sought out people from diverse backgrounds and fields, partly to challenge his own limitations, but also to gather material for his books.
So he was very strategic about his networking.
Oh, yeah. He knew exactly who he needed to connect with to achieve his goals. For example, he interviewed HR professionals for his book on peak performance and tons of successful YouTubers for his book on YouTube, Young Rich.
I love that he gives specific advice for listeners based on their own goals.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to work in banking, he suggests connecting with recent graduates who've landed banking jobs, branch managers who understand the day-to-day realities, and seasoned financial experts who have that big picture knowledge.
It's all about finding the right mentors for your specific journey. And for those already working, he suggests focusing on senior leaders who can offer guidance and strategic insights.
Makes sense. And he even recommends specific ratios for how to allocate your networking efforts. Like, junior employees should spend 50% of their time networking with high-performing peers or people one level up, 30% with mid-level managers, and 20% with senior leaders.
It's a great framework for building a balanced and strategic network. But what if you don't have easy access to those high-level mentors? Well, Kim Do-yoon has a solution for that too.
Hit me with it.
Books. He's a voracious reader himself, and he believes books can be incredible mentors, especially when you can't get face-to-face time with successful people. In fact, he read over 3,000 books to prepare for his interviews.
Wow, 3,000, that's commitment.
He even quotes an entrepreneur who said his life changed after he started reading consistently. He compared books to game guides, offering solutions to various life challenges.
I love that analogy. It really highlights the practical value of reading.
But here's a crucial point. Don't just read to reinforce what you already believe. Be open to new ideas, challenge your assumptions, and be willing to change your thinking based on what you learn.
Right, don't be afraid to get uncomfortable and shake things up.
Exactly. So even if you didn't start with all the advantages, reading can be a powerful equalizer. It gives you access to the wisdom and experiences of people you might never have the opportunity to meet otherwise.
It's like having a personal mentor right there in your hands. Okay, let's shift gears to the second key, which is observation, represented by the character Kree in Korean.
In today's fast-paced, internet-driven world, observation is more important than ever.
You can't just rely on your own limited experience anymore. The world's changing too quickly. You have to be able to see the bigger picture, understand the trends, and adapt accordingly.
Right. Kim Do-yoon argues that we're constantly bombarded with information, and our brains naturally filter out what we don't perceive as relevant.
He illustrates this with a funny personal story. He says he never noticed how many plastic surgery clinics there were until he started thinking about the topic. Then suddenly, they were everywhere.
It's like our brains have these blinders on. We only see what we're focused on.
Makes sense. And he points out how our professions, our training, even our mindsets shape what we observe. A police officer notices things a regular person wouldn't. An artist sees beauty in everyday things that most people overlook.
It's all about what you've trained yourself to see.
And then he shares his secret to winning 17 awards in college competitions.
17, wow.
Yeah, pretty impressive, right? And his strategy wasn't just about working hard. It was about being strategic. He sought out competitions that were a good fit for his skills, like a runner choosing running races instead of swimming competitions. He was playing to his strengths and choosing his battles wisely.
Smart move. So he was observing the landscape and identifying the best opportunities for himself.
Exactly. And he encourages listeners to do the same. He says, look at your web browsing history, the apps you use, what you do in your free time. Those habits reveal your interests and potential future paths.
It's like those habits are clues to your subconscious desires and aspirations.
He then throws in this awesome quote from Andre Malraux. Man who has had a dream for a long time will finally get looked like the dream. Basically, what you focus on shapes who you become.
Love that. It's a reminder that our daily actions and thoughts have long-term consequences.
So the key is to spend most of your time doing things you enjoy and are good at, especially if they align with your long-term goals. It's about being intentional with your time and energy.
Right. Don't just drift through life, reacting to whatever comes your way. Actively shape your destiny.
And he makes this interesting point that luck often avoids people who lack clear goals and focus. If you don't know what you're looking for, you might miss opportunities right in front of you.
You got to have a vision, a target to aim for.
To really illustrate the importance of observing trends, he brings up this fascinating case study, the Borum Tube YouTube channel. This channel, featuring a little kid, actually earned so much money that the family behind it bought a building in Gangnam for a whopping 9.5 billion Korean won.
Wait, seriously? From a YouTube channel with a kid?
Yeah, it was a huge deal back in 2019. Of course, there are controversies about child exploitation, and the channel eventually stopped uploading.
I remember that.
But Kim Do-yoon's point is, look beyond the drama and see the bigger trend. This was a clear sign that viewership, even among young kids, was shifting away from traditional media and toward online platforms.
It was a huge wake-up call for the traditional media industry.
Absolutely. He contrasts the low viewership of a typical KBS children's TV show with the massive view counts on BoRumTube.
A stark contrast.
And he challenges listeners to think, if I had seen this trend coming, how could I have capitalized on it?
It's a great thought experiment. What opportunities are we missing right now because we're not paying attention?
And to further emphasize the shift, he shares data on the decline of traditional advertising, TV, print, billboards, and the rise of digital advertising in South Korea.
The numbers don't lie. People are spending more time online, and advertisers are following the eyeballs.
Exactly. And it's not just about advertising. It's about understanding how people consume information and entertainment. He talks about the move from scheduled TV viewing to on-demand video through platforms like YouTube and Netflix.
We're all in control of our own viewing schedules now.
And the stats on YouTube usage in South Korea are mind-blowing. In April 2021, it was the most used mobile app in the country. People spent 68 billion minutes on YouTube, more than double the time spent on Kakao Talk, their biggest messaging app.
That's insane. YouTube is a juggernaut.
And Kim Do-yoon points out that this isn't just relevant for media folks. Anyone who wants to sell a product, promote a service, or connect with an audience needs to understand this trend.
If you're not on YouTube, are you even real? Kidding. Sort of.
But seriously, you have to be where your audience is. And what's really interesting is that YouTube was ranked as the 5th most trusted news outlet in a 2020 survey by KBS, Korea's national broadcaster.
Even they recognize the power of YouTube.
And KBS News celebrated reaching 1 million subscribers on their own YouTube channel. It's a whole new world.
Times are changing, for sure.
So Kim Do-yoon's message is clear. Let go of old assumptions, embrace the new trends, and adapt or get left behind.
Don't be a dinosaur. Evolve or become extinct.
And this leads perfectly into his next point. Every choice you make contributes to your overall luck. Life is a series of decisions, and it's the accumulation of those choices that shapes our destiny.
It's like that butterfly effect idea, right? Every little flap of the wings can lead to huge changes down the line.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that even seemingly small decisions, like choosing to study instead of party in college, can have a huge impact on your future.
It's all about playing the long game.
And while he acknowledges that a prestigious university doesn't guarantee success, he argues that making consistently good choices at every stage of life significantly increases your chances of achieving your goals. He then dives into 3 key considerations that successful people use when making decisions.
Sahara.
The first is to focus on the future implications of your choices, not just the immediate gratification. He tells this great story about a business owner who came from a very poor background.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This guy could have easily wallowed in self-pity, but instead, he focused on what he could do to create a better future for himself. He shifted his mindset from, why me, to what can I do about it?
That's a powerful shift from victim to agent of change.
Exactly. The second consideration is to remember that second chances exist.
Don't beat yourself up over past mistakes.
Right. He mentions a friend who missed a big opportunity but didn't dwell on it. He just kept moving forward, knowing that another chance would come along. There's a saying, a person has 3 big strokes of luck in their lifetime.
So don't waste those strokes on regret.
Exactly. And the third consideration is all about building the capacity to make better choices. He quotes a securities executive who talks about the compound interest of choices, meaning that your abilities influence the quality of your decisions.
So the more you learn and grow, the better choices you'll be equipped to make.
Precisely. He uses the example of Bitcoin. If you don't understand how it works, you're more likely to make bad investment decisions.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to making choices.
And he ties this into a quote by Abraham Lincoln, "After 40, everyone is responsible for their face." Basically, the choices you make shape who you are, both internally and externally.
I love that quote. It's a reminder that we are the architects of our own lives.
And Kim Do-yoon makes this bold statement. Luck is the sum of your choices in response to the questions and opportunities the world throws at you.
So it's not just random chance. We have agency.
Exactly. Consistently making small, good choices day after day compounds over time and ultimately shapes our luck.
It's like building a house brick by brick. Each choice is a brick, and over time, you create a solid foundation for your life.
Beautiful analogy. But he also acknowledges that not all choices are created equal. Some clearly lead to better long-term outcomes, but people often choose the easier path.
We've all been guilty of that.
He even suggests that you can predict a person's life in 10 years based on the choices they consistently make today. So, are you making choices that align with the future you want?
It's a great question to ask yourself. Now, based on his interviews, Kim Do-yoon identified 4 ways good luck shows up in people's lives.
Oh, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
The first is genetics and innate factors. Some people are just born lucky, right? They inherit good genes, a supportive family, maybe natural talent in a particular field.
Like Usain Bolt, he was pretty much born to be a sprinter.
Exactly. But that's the rarest form of luck, and for most of us, it's out of our control.
So what about the rest of us?
Well, the second way is through time and environmental factors. Sometimes talent needs to align with the right historical moment.
He gives the example of Rodriguez, whose music only became famous decades later in South Africa.
Right. It's about being in the right place at the right time.
And he says, we can influence this kind of luck by developing insight into current trends and positioning ourselves accordingly. He mentions successful Korean publishers who adapted to the digital age.
Smart move. It's not just about working hard. It's about working smart and understanding the environment you're operating in.
And that he distinguishes between doing diligently and doing what's right for the current circumstances.
There's a big difference. You can be the hardest working person in the room, but if you're not aligned with the times, you're swimming upstream.
So true. What's the third way luck shows up?
Networking factors, which we already talked about. Having mentors and supportive people in your life can make all the difference.
Like Park Ji-sung, the famous Korean footballer, and his coach, Ga-sitting, or the singer Rain and his mentor, Park Jin-young.
Those relationships were instrumental in their success.
And Kim Do-yoon's advice for attracting this kind of luck is to sow seeds by meeting more people. You never know where a valuable connection might come from.
Cast a wide net.
And finally, the fourth way luck manifests is through individual effort.
This is where we have the most control.
Right. He emphasizes that action is crucial. He tells a story about a cosmetics company president who attributes their success in China to being an early mover. They saw the opportunity and jumped on it.
Bold move.
Kim Do-yoon explains that good luck is often the intersection of long-term preparation meeting favorable timing.
So it's not just about luck, it's about being ready when luck strikes.
Exactly. He uses the rapid growth of unicorn startups like Airbnb and Uber as examples. Those founders took action at the right time, and it paid off big time.
Timing is everything.
But he also acknowledges that timing is often unpredictable, and many attempts fail. The key is to keep preparing, keep experimenting, and be patient. He compares it to building a snowball.
I love that analogy. At first, it's hard work to get the snowball rolling.
But once it gains momentum, it just keeps growing.
Exactly. So keep pushing that snowball, and eventually, it'll become an avalanche of success.
Well said. Okay, let's move on to the third key, which is all about speed, represented by the character So in Korean.
Speed. In today's world, it's not enough to just work hard. You have to work smart and efficiently.
Kim Do-yoon argues that simply having lots of skills doesn't guarantee success. You need to focus on strategically investing your resources to accelerate your luck.
It's like using leverage in investing. You want to find ways to amplify the impact of your efforts.
Exactly. But first, you need to understand your own capabilities. He says accelerating luck requires that you first understand what you can actually do well.
Oh, thyself.
Right. And while he acknowledges the saying, direction is more important than speed, he adds that clear direction enables increased speed. If you don't know where you're going, it's hard to gain momentum.
It's like trying to drive a car without a steering wheel. You might be going fast, but you're not going to get where you want to be.
He shares an example of a friend who was trying to do too many things at once. This guy had a full-time job, a side hustle selling stuff on a shopping channel, was learning a new language, networking, working out, and even getting certified as a barista.
Wow, that's a lot on his plate.
It was way too much. Kim Do-yoon uses this image of a plate spinning way too many things to illustrate this. And he points out that spreading yourself too thin dilutes your time and energy. It's hard to become an expert in anything when you're constantly switching gears.
There's a physics concept for this, right? Something about inertia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It takes energy to change direction, so the more you're switching back and forth, the less efficient you become.
So focus is key.
Absolutely. He recommends reducing the number of things you're pursuing simultaneously. Ideally, focus on one primary direction.
Pick a lane and stay in it.
He uses the example of studying for the TOEIC exam. Someone who studies slowly and consistently over a long period might get a decent score, but someone who focuses intensely for a shorter period might score even higher because they've concentrated their efforts.
It's like that saying, slow and steady wins the race, but sometimes a burst of focused energy can propel you further, faster.
And that accelerated speed can create a positive feedback loop. You achieve some success, which motivates you to push even harder.
The law of attraction in action.
He observes that the most successful entrepreneurs are laser-focused on their ventures. They don't have time or mental bandwidth for much else.
It's all about prioritizing and eliminating distractions.
He also cautions against relying solely on the idea that slow progress in the right direction is enough. Many opportunities are time-sensitive, so you need to be able to act decisively.
Seize the day.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. He introduces the idea of building a luck-generating flywheel.
Intriguing. A flywheel. What's that all about?
He draws inspiration from Jeff Bezos's flywheel model for Amazon. Remember that?
Vaguely. Remind me.
Basically, it's this virtuous cycle where more sellers on Amazon lead to more product selection, which leads to a better customer experience, which attracts more traffic, which in turn attracts more sellers, and so on.
Ah, I see. It's this self-reinforcing loop that builds momentum over time.
Exactly. And Kim Do-yoon explains how you can apply this concept to your own life goals. He uses the example of creating a successful YouTube channel.
Let's break it down.
He lays out a 6-step process. First, you need a plan. What kind of content will you create? Second, invite guests to collaborate and expand your reach. Third, invest in professional equipment and filming. Fourth, get your editing game on point. Fifth, optimize your titles, thumbnails, and descriptions to attract viewers. And sixth, constantly evaluate and improve your process.
So it's all about systematizing and optimizing.
Exactly. By defining your flywheel, you make the tasks clear, speed up your preparation, and create a system for objective evaluation.
Makes sense. You're not just flailing around in the dark. You have a clear roadmap.
And he compares this to Amazon's strategy of reducing costs through logistics. Kim Do-yoon himself streamlined his video production process, hiring editors and setting up a studio to cut down on time and effort.
Efficiency is key.
Absolutely. He points out that his channel uploads around 80 videos a month with a small team, thanks to their streamlined system. Other channels struggle to produce that much content with much larger teams.
That's impressive. It's all about working smarter, not harder.
And with a defined flywheel, there's no time wasted on indecision. The next steps are always clear. While some initial research and planning are needed, the execution speed increases over time, generating serious forward momentum.
So it's like pushing a boulder uphill at first.
But once you get it over the hump, it rolls downhill on its own.
I like where this is going.
And the best part is, this flywheel model can be applied to any goal career advancement. Starting a business, learning a new skill. It's a universal principle for accelerating progress.
So it's not just about working faster, it's about working smarter and creating a system that amplifies your efforts.
Precisely. And as a natural result of this efficiency, you develop a more regular routine, which further enhances your time management skills.
Yeah.
Kim Do-yoon encourages listeners to break down their goals into smaller steps and build a flywheel to propel themselves forward.
Actionable advice. Love it. Now, what about those of us who feel like we have weaknesses holding us back? Should we focus on improving those weaknesses or double down on our strengths?
Great question. Kim Do-yoon tackles this head-on. He actually cites Gallup's research on strengths, which shows that people who are aware of their strengths are more engaged, productive, and successful. He contrasts this with the common tendency to obsess over our weaknesses.
We're often our own worst critics.
He shares this observation from Young Mi-moon, a professor at Harvard Business School. She noticed that her students often focused on improving their weaknesses, which actually made their discussions less interesting and dynamic.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, when everyone's trying to be well-rounded, it can lead to a sort of bland homogeneity.
Makes sense. We lose our unique edges.
Exactly. He argues that most people and companies focus on fixing weaknesses, while very few prioritize enhancing strengths. This leads to widespread mediocrity and